Well, in the long run, who knows? It depends whether we get into runaway climate change, in which case, who knows how many of us will survive. We're talking about highly chaotic and unstable human futures then. But if we do act decisively in the next decades, but we do need to realize that the world's commercial food system depends basically on 6 plants. Now, as the world gradually warms up, they have various reactions. Some become a little less productive, some become a little more productive. But as we begin to head towards 2 degrees, up towards 3 degrees, and who knows further, all of them lose productivity fast, steep. And they also lose nutritional quality. Wheat, for example, will lose maybe 30% of its protein value under that kind of climate change. So we're talking about a transition which, if we don't manage it and prepare for it, is simply enormous and will not be manageable, and therefore chaotic and highly disruptive of political stability. So probably what we're going to see, if I were to be alive 60 years from now, certainly our children, we won't be eating the foodstuffs that we're eating today, and depending on the crop varieties, or maybe even the crops that we depend on today in our global food system, and that in many cases regionally important crops will have a much higher prominence in the overall mosaic, and that areas of current surplus to the world market will very likely not be the areas of surplus in this imagined future. So there'll be a huge diversity, which does imply in turn that there'll be some backing away from the aspiration to have a wholly globalized food and agricultural production system. Trade is in food commodities and food products is really important in evening the flow of foods to where it's needed. And nobody's talking about some sort of autonomous food production zones and doing away with trade, but it certainly won't be the kind of trading patterns we have at present. Because the whole concept of comparative advantage of growing lots of wheat in America or lots of soya in Brazil begins to collapse, if you like, under climate change. And there are lots of things we really have no understanding at all what's going to happen. We have to be prepared for. We have no understanding of how pest and disease responses will play themselves out, except that we notice they're changing very fast. We have no understanding of how animal diseases may spread to the human population, though we're beginning to get a glimpse of what it could mean with Mexican flu or HN51, whatever it is, and avian flu, and we're already beginning to see the desynchronization. It's another jargon word, but it's really important to farming and food futures to understand better this, is that a lot of our productivity under any conditions of growth depends on a very neat synchronization through the seasons as days lengthen, as spring, the equivalent of spring, knocks in, as temperatures increase, or as the rains come in the tropics, and so on. And so you get the insects beginning to come out of the cocoons and so on, at a time when the birds need to be eating them, and the plants are flowering, a time when the bees are around to pollinate them, and so on. But with lengthening seasons and much greater instability in temperature and rainfall, this tightly intricate, woven set of relationships is beginning to sort of fracture a bit and fray a bit. And we really no idea how fast and how far that's going to go and what the consequences will be. So you can say, yes, in the long run, northern Sweden might be growing wheat, who knows, sometime in the imagined future. But it's getting there. That has huge potential to be so disruptive. So we really have to start thinking about how to build buffers into our food and farming systems.